It's starting to kick. Is it going to kick? You know me. Till I see it, it's not real. I am the doubting Thomas of the internet. And that's that's a thing from the Bible. There it is. I've seen it, and it looks pretty good. Yeah, there we go. I see me in the past, huh? That's how it works. I dig it. How is everybody? How are you? What's up, everybody? Good afternoon, good evening, good day. Good afternoon to all my East Coasters. Good evening to, if it's evening where you're at, if you're in the UK. How's the future, Australia? Did you fix climate change? New Zealand, you guys are fine. You guys are just totally open. You haven't had a COVID case in a month. Why don't you take care of climate change for us? I feel like that's a fair trade-off. Hey, you guys did it. Good job. Can you fix climate change for everybody? That'd be great. And good morning to all my fellow West Coasters. It's morning, and I'm feeling it. I feel like it's morning. I'm just it's morning. Welcome to Get Your News On with Ron. Shout out to everyone who makes this show possible. Our friends over at ZT.com, CHITEA.com. Their tea kind of rules. You can get their tea wholesale because of the pandemic. Makes an amazing holiday gift. Some of my personal favorites, the raspberry pecan, the monk's blend. They supply the tea to this show. Check it out, ZT.com, CHITEA.com. Also, our friends over at triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. Trendy Nay educates the public on cannabis and cannabis issues, and he also creates this amazing topical pain oil that you put on your body. I use it on my neck all the time. It's fantastic. Check it out, triageoil.com, TRIAGE oil.com. All right, so my guest today, first of all, we're going to be breaking down what I consider my failure at the neighborhood council meeting for municipal broadband. We were going to talk about this on Monday. Well, let me bring in my guest first. So my guest is a regular guest here. You guys know him. Very funny comedian, friend of the show. Please welcome back Mr. Krish Mohan. What's up?
Hello. How's it going? Good to see
buddy.
you.
So, all right. So I was going to do this yesterday, and I was planning on maybe having you as a guest or just not having a guest at all, because I went to my neighborhood council meeting. I presented on municipal broadband. People were like, Ron, we got to watch the footage and you got to tell us how it went. And we got to break it down because that's part of the mission of this show, which it is part of the mission of the show. When I went to the town hall in Pasadena, we did the same thing. So we're doing the same thing now. We're documenting this stuff to try to push the cause forward. But I felt a little weird being hey, to my guests, being hey, welcome to my show where you're going to talk to me and you're going to watch a video of me talking. And then we're going to talk about me talking. It's like Inception with just my dumb face. Welcome to my show. I felt weird. So I figured that's a show I should just do myself. But what happened yesterday was the whole Julian Assange tweet, which I'm sure you saw that pastor tweet. So I'm like, well, we gotta talk about this. So Gordon Dimmick was around. I didn't have a guest scheduled because I was thinking I'm going to do my municipal broadband thing, but then something very pressing happened. So I was like, oh man, I can't not talk about this today. Yeah. So I totally switched gears. Gordon Dimmick was tweeting about it a bunch. So I messaged him and I was like, dude, are you around? And he's like, yeah, I'm around. And I was like, awesome. So anyway, that's what happened. So now you get to be here for the municipal broadband episode, where it's all right, we're going to watch a video of me and then we're going to talk about this video of me, and municipal broadband's in there somewhere. And then before the show's over, we're going to watch my first ever stand-up set. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're not doing that.
Exciting.
I don't even have that. I don't know where it is.
I don't have my first stand-up set either. Somebody has recorded it, so I think it's on a VHS tape somewhere.
No shit.
But, yeah, it's but it might be in the basement of my high school or something. If there's ever an apocalyptic type situation, and somebody has to go raid my high school, they might find my very first stand-up set, and they're gonna be like, "Boy, this kid must have hated his parents a lot."
Why would it be at the high school? Did they do it on AV equipment or something?
Yeah, they wanted to record it because it was a big talent show and no one had ever done something like that at the high school before. So they recorded it. So there's just a video of this goofy fucking 16-year-old wearing a top hat and a polo shirt with jean shorts, thinking that was
You wore shorts?
I wore shorts on stage the first
Oh,
time. Yeah,
dude.
man.
Can't do
Yeah.
that.
And it's the only time I've ever gotten a standing ovation.
They're like, you're so brave. Good job.
He did. He wore shorts on stage. This kid.
Dude. Well, my first time was way worse. I was at it was at a sold out show. And which that should totally be your first time ever doing stand up in front of a sold out audience.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, man, Greg Morton was the headliner. So it was like a special event.
Yeah.
And it was at a one nighter. It wasn't at a club, but it was like a one nighter. And basically I called the booker and I made it out like I knew what I was doing. Like I was like, yeah, I've been doing this. I don't know why I lied basically, but I was like, yeah, no, I've done stand up. I'd like maybe tried it once before randomly and didn't know what I was doing, but I was like, yeah, no, I can do this. I'm pretty good. And so I get up there and just bomb royally. I mean, it was just, I didn't know what I was doing. It was like a sold out audience. I was like, I was really into Lewis Black at the time.
Yeah.
So like, it was just a very long rant where I was yelling, but I didn't have timing or punchlines that he did. I just had a rant and I just yelled it into the microphone, not realizing that like the audio was really shitty. I had no idea of like because like my only other experience was doing theater as a kid and playing in bands, which when you're playing in a band, you fucking hold the microphone up to your mouth and you sing. You know, you don't do that when you're doing stand up. It's very different. I didn't know that. So it was pretty train wrecky. And my girlfriend at the time, her parents were in the audience. I had never met them before.
Oh,
so their first exposure to me was just me bombing royally at this show. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Like everyone talks about their first time doing stand-up, and usually it's like you have that first time like beginner's luck where it's like you kill. That's like everyone's story. It's like, dude, I killed my first time and then I bombed for a year. Like that's like everyone's story. But for me, it's like, no, I bombed royally my first time. And then my second time it went well. And I was like, oh, I know how to do this. And then I just, bombed for like a year.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
Yeah, my first time was like the most ridiculous first time you could ever ask for. You could like I don't know what I was like. It wasn't at an open mic. It was a sold out freaking audience that was there for a special event, and just this guy who had no idea what he was doing. And then here's the thing: I didn't understand how comedy worked or how road comedy worked, so I thought that the person who went up after me was just a grad student.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Because this was where I went
Right.
to school. This was in Bloomington, Indiana. So I thought he was like just a student who did this, and I was like, he's really good. Why am I not as good as he is? And so he got off, and he was actually the feature act, which for everyone watching/listening, that means he's a professional comedian. I didn't know this. I didn't realize how any of it worked. And he got off stage, and I just go, hey, so what are you studying? And he goes, what the hell are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, like, are you a student? And he goes, no. And I'm like, oh, well, what do you do? And he goes, you just saw it. And then he explained it. He's like, no, this is my job. He's like, I'm in Bloomington tonight. Tomorrow night, I'm in Terre Haute. The night after that, I'm in Kentucky. And, this doesn't pay a lot. So if you had dreams, I don't know. I guess I just crushed all of them for you. But you can make a living if you work hard enough. And he's like, I live in New York City. And I was like, oh, my God. Okay. This is like a real thing. So I shouldn't feel that terrible that I bombed royally and you did great. And he was like, well, you should maybe try writing jokes. I think that might help you. That was his advice to me. And it made sense. He's like, you need to, he's like, I get it. You're trying to do a rant, but like, you have to have jokes when you do that.
Yeah. You got the yelling down. The yelling is perfect. Just add jokes while you're yelling and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Right. So, anyway. All right. So, but here's where speaking of failure, we're right into failure today, and this show is all about failure today. So here we are. I presented on municipal broadband to my neighborhood council on Saturday, and I was not happy with how it went. I did not think it went great, and but you guys were like, "Well, Ron, we want to see it, and we want to dissect it because that's what you've been doing." That's what you should continue to do. So here it goes. You ready for this, Krish?
Let's do this.
Here I am. That's me. You can see me. By the way, I'm really proud of that photo in the background. First of all, I took that picture. That's a picture that I took. It's not doing it justice because of my like body up in the way. But anyway, here it goes. I took that photo. I'm proud of it.
Looks like a screensaver. It's very nice.
Yeah, I am new to Pedro, so awesome to meet everybody. And municipal broadband, I'll get right into it. Municipal broadband is basically city-owned internet or like a neighborhood cooperative internet. So instead of getting your internet through a large cable company, you would get it through your city or through a neighborhood cooperative, and you would pay your bill at another utility. There was a study done not too long ago by the Institute of Local Self-Reliance, which really helps pursue these types of projects all over the country, along with Harvard University, that revealed that when cities and municipalities do municipal broadband, they are able to offer people better. I already walked like 3 people. You see that? Like 2 people just got up and were like, "Fuck this guy." Like, did you see that? They just left. Like that person in the bookshelf. Now that person, the person in the corner is like the organizer of the meeting. So she probably was actually doing stuff, but like that person just bounced. They were like, I'm assuming these other people in the corner that don't have their cameras on, I assuming they're just already partying. This guy just looks like I'm giving him a headache already. This guy, like he just looks pissed. And he, I don't think he liked me. I feel like he did not like me. I feel like this guy, the guy behind the guy who has a headache. Here, let me use the thing here. Yeah, this guy, I'm pretty sure didn't like me. I'm pretty sure this guy didn't like me.
The second guy,
he might be a little bit on board. I'm not sure. He looks like he's like using a saw or something. He's doing a project.
I like that the second guy is like, "I'll give this guy a shot, but I don't like his moxie. He's coming on a little strong."
Like, yeah. I feel like the person I'm winning over the most so far is the dog. I feel like this dog is like, I like him. This person was like, "I'm gonna read some of these books behind me. Fuck this guy." All right, let's watch this. At a more reasonable price, pretty much 100% of the time. Also, as I'm here today, a couple things that are going on in the world around us. I mean, first of all, I don't really need to say how important the internet is in our lives right now, especially during these pandemic times that we're still not out of yet. Also, Comcast recently decided they were going to impose data caps on people. Another thing this pandemic has taught us, data caps are completely unnecessary. They are just a price gouging mechanism and nothing else. These big cable companies, they say, "Oh, well, if we don't have data caps, the internet will just crash." They lifted data caps during this pandemic. People are using the internet for city council meetings and school and work. You guys know all this, and nothing happened. Data caps are complete nonsense. Comcast is going to impose those on people during a pandemic. Also, here in California, we had a broadband bill called SB4 that was going to invest a large amount of money in broadband development throughout the state. This bill received a letter of support from over a dozen digital rights groups. It was recently shelved by Anthony Rendon. If you know that name, it's because he's the same person who shelved the single payer bill here in California. So they shelved the broadband bill as well. As far as bringing municipal broadband to San Pedro, this place is in an interesting area where technically we're part of LA proper, but we also do a lot of things as neighborhoods. At least that's what I'm gathering as someone who's new here. There's an organization. I feel like they're warming up to me a little bit.
Now that you see that, now that you got the local references in.
Yeah. And I feel like the that I brought up some specific policies. Like you could feel their frustration at like, really, there was a broadband bill and they shelved it, which by the way, we're going to talk about that more later. So I feel like maybe my first bit that did not connect, but my second bit, they were like, all right, okay, all right. So everybody watching at home, bring up how they screw over broadband, and that might win more people over
Then
to the cause.
then they'll be like, oh, this guy's the real deal.
All right, so here we go.
Organization called Next Century Cities that helps inspire municipal broadband projects all over the country. Los Angeles is already a member, Burbank is a member, Glendale is a member, and Santa Monica is a member. So to get this ball rolling in San Pedro, it's likely as simple as somebody from this council or another council simply contacting Next Century Cities, because it needs to be a representative that reaches out and saying, hey, we understand Los Angeles is already a member. We're a neighborhood. We're part of Los Angeles proper. We would like to be abreast of all the developments at Next Century Cities. And then they would basically put that person in the loop. As far as breaking ground on the actual infrastructure of municipal broadband, there's about 5 to 10 consultants throughout the country that specialize in this type of work. And many of them work often right here in California. Santa Monica has a municipal project going right now. So does Beverly Hills. So I know I packed a lot into a short amount of time because I wanted to have time for questions. And if anyone has any questions, please do fire away.
So there you go. And look, in fair, I mean, I know some people in the chat, they're like, these people are totally disinterested. In fairness, let me give a little bit, because I don't want to make fun of my neighborhood council. They do, they do important things for the community. It had been a 2-hour long meeting. So before I got to speak, so it was a huge crowded agenda. So people are reasonably a little tired. So, in fairness, let's not make fun of them. Let's just make fun of me and how much I sucked, because that's how we'll all learn. But so I feel like they were a little more open towards the end. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe they were just like, I don't want to. But here's where things went south. I feel like when I'm looking back on it, and part of this was me trying to be respectful of the time that they gave me. They wanted no more than 10 minutes, which is enough time to do what I came there to do. But what I should have just taken a step back and done, which I think would have made the Q&A go better. I realize now that some of these people had no idea where I was coming from. Mm-hmm. And the reason that's relevant is because I think some of them didn't realize that I myself wasn't a developer. I myself wasn't like an actual, quote, lobbyist for something like this. I'm just a dude who, covers these issues on his show, who's passionate about it, who believes it's the future, and who wants to try to bring something good to the community with their help. That's all I am. And I think some of them didn't know that. You know what I mean? Like, I think some of them thought like I was some kind of representative or developer myself, and I'm none of those things, nor am I pretending to be.
Yeah, it definitely makes a bigger impact when, because it seems like you're trying to sell them municipal broadband as like a product rather than this thing that would just make the internet better, and you're coming to them not as not the salesman, but as a concerned citizen. And I think that has a bigger impact than when it's from a representative, from somebody that's like, hey, I work for something that has to do with municipal broadband and I stand to make some money off of it, and all you have to do is approve it. You're coming at it as like, this could benefit everybody, and I'm just somebody that knows enough information about it to pass on to you guys to maybe consider this.
To find the right people. Yeah, no, and yeah. That's where I fucked up. That is where so everybody who's watching this, because I know some of the people watching this show, you guys are showing up at your own city hall meetings, which is awesome. And I love it when you email me your success stories. Some of you have gotten meetings with your mayors. That's freaking awesome. I'm probably not going to get that. Our mayor here in LA is not so great. But that's why I'm actually hoping to do it at the neighborhood level to start. But I think that's a worthy piece of advice to learn from my mistake. Take a second to say who you are and where you're coming from. to clear up any ambiguity. That will help people when they're asking you questions. Because basically, and we'll play some of the questions. What ended up kind of transpiring was basically I came at them and was like, hey, I think we should build a park here. And they asked me, okay, how big are the monkey bars going to be and how much is it going to cost? And it's like, okay, I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy, but here's what first of all, I'm just a citizen. I'm not a monkey bar developer. But what I can do is I can find the right people to not only answer those questions, but to execute we would need the right way so that we don't screw up. That's what I have the skill set and background to do. But I'm not in that camp. I'm not I know how to take a peek under the hood, but I'm not under the hood myself. I'm just a citizen.
Yeah, and I think it gives I think anybody that kind of talks about this stuff as passionately as you do, that's what you become. You become the voice of the issue, and we need that. That's an important role, because there might be somebody that knows how to do all the technical stuff, right? But they don't know how to present the information. They don't know how to present the benefits of it, or how it's cost effective, or anything like that. And that's where people like you and I come into play, where we know how to talk about it. We know how to get people excited about it, because that's kind of what we do all the time. And you're right. If you don't introduce yourself, people get disinterested very quickly, because there's no personal, they aren't making a personal connection with you. It's very I kind of feel like it's very similar to stand up, because if in that opening 2 minutes you don't introduce yourself the right way. And when I was opening for Lee Camp, that was something that Lee would always say is I would go up and I would make a quick little local reference or something like that, or piggyback off of something that Lee said, or whoever the opener was before me, but they don't know me enough for me to jump right into making that kind of a reference. And he was like, your first 2 or 3 minutes is kind of wonky, because they don't know who you are. They're trying to assess whether they can trust you or not, rather than your first joke just hits and they're like, this is exactly who you are. And we know the direction of where what you believe. So when you do make a satirical point, they get what the satirical point is, and no one's like, what's this guy talking about? So
yeah.
And in presentations, it's kind of the same way. So it's very effective to make that connection.
It's exactly the same way. And for me, it's it's not like I didn't introduce myself at all. I was like, hey, I'm new here to Pedro, and this is something I feel strongly about. But I should have just went a little bit of a step further and also made it clear, I'm a citizen, and this is why and I could have said I host a show where we talk about digital rights issues a lot, and that's my related experience. But I'm not, because I think some of them were like, well, did you move here to develop this? Did you move here? I think, and it didn't dawn on me that wasn't clear. It just went over it just went out of my point of reference, because I was so concerned with, okay, I have 3 minutes to really explain why we should do this and why it's important. And, that's where I fucked up. That is where I fucked up. And it's my fault. It's not their fault. And we're going to listen to some of the questions. The fact that they were asking these questions was not their fault. They actually had some great questions. The fact that they were asking them, it was my fault for not being more clear where I was coming from to, better inform the types of questions they would want to ask me. So,
and to your point too, is I remember seeing the tweet when you put it up, is that you've done this 100 times, but you're still nervous because this is a new neighborhood that you're presenting this idea to. And sometimes when we do get nervous, and that's the same thing that's happened. I remember, not to keep going back to opening for Lee, but that I remember those are some of the bigger crowds.
Wait a second. You've opened for Lee Camp before?
I've opened for Lee Camp.
Shit.
Have I not mentioned?
You've opened for Lee Camp. Oh my God.
Drop here. But but they're some of the bigger crowds that I've opened for and I've been in front of, and some of the bigger ones where it's
crowds are a blast, man. We did
great.
Yeah, I love he had me and Elwood do sets when he was here in SoCal the last time, and we all did a show together in Ventura. It was a blast.
But that's the thing is they're so they're so friendly that even when you have a terrible set, they're like, "How about I buy you a drink?" Like they're like, "We know you mean well," you know. But that was I think it was like one of the California sets too. Is it was like 150 200 people, and it was. But I just got nervous because I was like, it's a packed room and I hadn't performed in a week, you know, and I was like, okay, I better, you know, and I got into my head, but but that's what happens. You get nervous, you get in your head, and then you kind of make like a rookie mistake, right? Like something
Totally,
that you've
man.
never done before. And then that was the thing. It's like I got off stage and I was like, well, I just ate shit. And you know, and it's like you go back and you learn about you know, like, oh yeah, I did a weird intro. I opened with something that I normally would never open with. And they have no idea who I am. This is the first time I'm in, you know, San Jose or wherever I was. But yeah, it happens. And when you're nervous, it does, those mistakes happen more often because you're kind of overthinking about everything. And you get in your own head and then you get in your own way.
Well, yeah, well, because it's funny when I posted that like I'm a little nervous about this, but I'm also excited. You know, some people were like, "You do stand up. How are you nervous?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, but it's yeah, yeah, I do stand up, and if the joke lands, they laugh. If it doesn't land, they don't, and then I have to recover. But in this case, I'm really trying to build something in my community, and it's not an easy task. And I need to convince an entire council that this is worthwhile. And, you know, that's not easy. Like that's not easy. And getting municipal broadband is not easy. Like it's not if it was, everyone would have it already. If it was ever, because it's a no-brainer. It's like, oh, you can get better internet and it's cheaper for everybody. Who wouldn't want that? Everyone would want that. It's not easy to accomplish, though. If it was, it's not impossible either, and it's doable no matter how big or small your town is. But it's not easy because if it was, we'd have it everywhere already.
Yeah.
And that's yeah. So let's go to the Q&A, and you know, this is where I kind of screwed up, and you know, this is where. And you know, and again, I mean, I know we're poking fun at some of the faces people are making, but at the end of the day, you know, this is my fault, not the council's fault. All right, so here we go. There's that moment of silence where they're like, how bad do all of us just want to strangle this guy and leave him in that water that he has a picture of? What if we all just what if we all found out where they were all texting each other? They were like, where do you think this motherfucker lives? What if we just showed up and ate him? What if we I'm sure that's not what they're thinking.
It kind of reminds me of like when you're in college and you give your final presentation for whatever class and you're like, okay, and that's the conclusion, and there's that eerie silence before everybody's supposed to give you their like questions and critiques, and you're like, oh no, I failed everything. Like that's kind of what it felt like for a second.
Yeah. All right. So here's oh wait, hang on. Let me get back to the all right, here we go.
How do we contact that organization?
Their website is just nextcenturycities.org. I'm pretty sure I sent it to you in an email, but I can totally send you all that stuff again. And you would just reach out and just say, hey, LA's a member. We're San Pedro. We would like to be kept in the loop. And it would probably be as simple as them just adding you to the email list. And that's kind of where it all starts. And that's totally free.
James, question.
Oh, dude. Okay. So this guy is interesting. So I get thrown off by this dude's question because he basically, I can't tell. And I'm curious to know your opinion because I honestly, I don't know. I still don't know. And I've watched this thing before. I don't know if he is like the real life Ron Swanson from Parks and Recreation. Or if he's like being like sarcastic, kind of like I honestly can't tell. And you're gonna know what I mean in a second. Let's play his question.
Thanks, Ron, for your presentation. The only thing that scared me was you said city operated, and anything city operated, maybe you could clarify that. Is the city really running this broadband?
Well, no, I mean,
So is he being like, this is what people think? Like, oh, everyone gets scared of a city thing. You know how that goes. Or is he being like, that's how he feels? I was a little taken because I was just like, why are you involved with neighborhood councils if you hate local government? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a very peculiar question.
Like, I can't tell if he's like saying this is how people are, and then other people kind of like laugh. So it's like, oh, is he this guy? Is he like the Ron Swanson? Like, I'm involved with city government, sort of, but I hate city government.
But I hate.
Which is weird. Like, why would you do that? I guess I don't understand. Like, so I don't know if that guy is being like I don't know what, not sarcastic, but what's the word for it, where you're like like tongue in cheek, like you're being, that's how people think, or if that's how he thinks. I still don't know.
It's really peculiar. His tone is so neutral. Like,
Yeah.
he didn't have that like tongue in cheek kind of tone where he was like, well, people are gonna say,
yeah, and he didn't have that qualifier. Like, he's like, well, people, like, oh, the city runs it, oh my god. And because I felt like being like, Cox and Comcast and they're all doing such a bang up job. Why would we want to ruin this great thing we got going? But the answer to his question was actually, in this case, no. So I just answered the guy's question while being a little thrown off by it and surprised, especially since it's not like Pedro's a relatively progressive place, like the neighborhood in which I live. So yeah, I was a little surprised on a number of levels. But so here we go. This is where, and I don't do well here, folks. I'm just letting you know, I don't do great here, in my opinion. Here we go.
There's a number of ways to go about it. I mean, my ideal, like the way I would like to see it ideally happen, just as somebody who has studied this stuff and is an enthusiast for it.
So I kind of introduced myself there. I kind of make it clear, but I should have done it better. I do say there, like, I'm just a guy who studies this stuff. I'm an enthusiast for it. I don't know how to build it. I'm not like, we could walk around. I'm not the guy who could walk around Coastal Pedro and be like, okay, we put the mesh network right there. I'm not that guy. I don't have, but what I can do is find the right person to do that. That's what I can do. That's the skill set I do have. I'm not that person myself, but I can find the right person and I can avoid the shitty person. That's what I have the ability to do. That's what I'm offering. Anyway, all right, but we already know I screwed up. All right.
Is that we would have more like a neighborhood cooperative. I mean, it could be as large as all of San Pedro, or it could be like Coastal Pedro does their own thing, and then other parts of Pedro, it might catch on and they might do it elsewhere there too. But I would imagine in a place as large as Los Angeles, a citywide thing would not be where it starts. I think it would probably start a lot smaller than that. And, it's kind of a one community at a time thing.
Thank you.
Noel, do you have a question?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for the presentation, Ron.
Thank you.
Everybody was very gracious. Like everyone was really cool. Everyone was really gracious. And they have some excellent questions. It's just like, I kind of felt like they got into questions about costs and stuff like that. And I would throw some figures. I threw some figures out there just because I didn't want them to think, I didn't want them to think that like I was just some guy that like, hey, I found this thing when I was Googling and it sounds cool. We should have it here. Like, I want them to know I'm a step above that, but I'm also not a developer. Like, I'm in between. The guy that just found out about a buzzword and is like giddy about it, and somebody who does this professionally. I'm right in between that. I'm the in between. I'm a content creator that talks about these issues and follows them, and has collaborated with some actual people who do it professionally.
Yeah, and you also gave that guy a pretty reasonable response in terms of, is it city owned, and that makes me nervous if it's city controlled. like you gave him a pretty solid response in terms of like, yeah, it could be, we'd boil it down to a neighborhood level because Los Angeles is huge and you can't start with something that large with something that's, something like this that's never been tried before. So let's try it with the neighborhoods and see how it works. And, and then we have enough data and information to put that infrastructure up to something like the entire city of Los Angeles, or even something like the entire city of New York, if things catch on. Like you gave them a really reasonable answer, so it's kind of difficult for someone like even if they're like, oh man, I don't trust anything that the government controls, even if you are in that camp, like that answer should at least give you some idea of like, okay, this is coming from like a good, reasonable, thought out point, and not somebody that's like, I heard about this thing on a video and on YouTube, and now I'm gonna talk to my city council. Like you've done the research, the information, and I'm hoping that guy seemed like he was kind of satisfied with that answer.
Really? I hope you're right. I don't know. I feel like, yeah. All right. So
I
here's
just feel like
another.
that dude doesn't really express a lot of emotion. Like he seems,
Well, I
he
mean, I
seems like
guess
a very stoic dude. Not
again,
that that's a bad thing.
yeah. What's a neighborhood council meeting that's been going on already for 2 hours?
Right,
If
right.
anyone forgot, like that backstory there. This is a neighborhood council meeting on Zoom that has been going on for 2 hours. So, yeah. I mean, it's not like.
Right.
And they're kind of like, we have an agenda to get through that we have to get through because it has to do with land use and it's immediate stuff. And this guy is talking about an infrastructure project that could potentially take years. So, I get it. They kind of just want to get the idea in and see where we might go next. But they did have a lot of questions, which I think means they weren't totally uninterested. So here, this is...
A couple of questions. What's the minimum number of people that need to be involved for something like this to work?
Do you mean as far as customers or like building?
I mean, they're not going to do it for 10 people, obviously. I mean, how many people?
Well, yeah, I mean, it really does vary. I mean, the biggest success story is Chattanooga, Tennessee, the entire city of Chattanooga. I don't know if any of y'all have ever heard about this, but Chattanooga actually has some of the best internet literally in the world because they use their power grid to build a big municipal broadband project. I think going back as 2014. So they have some of the best internet in the world, and they pay less than I pay for cable, and probably most of y'all as well. So, and then there's towns as small as 7,000 people that have done it. So really, there's no town too big or too small, unless of course it was a scenario with 10 people. But actually in the UK, there's a collective of farmers that got together and they laid cable with their tractors. So there might actually be things as small as 10 people. But
I didn't realize I got a laugh there, Krish.
Yeah.
I did not realize I got a freaking laugh there. Maybe I'm not bombing here. Maybe it's going a little bit better than I realize. Or not. I don't know. I'm not patting myself on the back. I still consider this a loss. And I will go down calling this a loss because I call a loss a loss. And you know what? I think it has something to do with being from a place like Pittsburgh. You don't polish losses in a town like that. You know what I mean? And I think in some ways you can kind of blame football for all this, but but I think it's a genuine principle to have. You call a loss. That doesn't mean you don't learn from it. You learn from it, but you don't like, well, I learned. No, you lost. You lost, and you learn from it so that you don't lose next time. And again, you guys are pointing out like these people are asking great questions. They are. They ask great questions. The failure was in me not thoroughly introducing myself. That was where the failure was. I think I communicated the information good. I think that they were clear on what the actual issue was. But I think that I wasn't necessarily as clear as I needed to be in my role in it. And because of that, the water got a little muddy. So that doesn't mean that we suck and that it's over. But it does mean like, okay, that's where you fucked up. And for those of you that are going to show up to your city council meetings, don't do that. Don't do that same thing. Like learn from that mistake. Take the 10 seconds to do that. to really say where you're coming from and what they should expect from you and what they shouldn't expect from you. That's where I screwed up. I mean, does this look like a guy who is trying to sell you something? You know, fair. They're like, this might be, if he is a salesperson, he's the shittiest one ever. And if he's developing anything, like what the fuck? He didn't even put a tie on. He didn't even put on one of his nicer t-shirts. This is a t-shirt he works out in, which is true. All right. Anyway, so, but you know,
To be fair, none of the other folks are wearing ties either. So
no, there are no. Everyone's a bit cash. We got some button-down shirts.
little business casual going on. That's not bad.
Now she's taking notes. I appreciate that. Got a laugh out of him. Got a laugh out of her. This guy. So I thought that was his actual. I'm pretty sure that's a screenshot, though. Like I'm pretty sure that's his profile picture. You know what I mean? Because he has not. I mean, he has not blinked for a while now. So I thought that was actually like him. But
he was. I mean, he was active at the beginning, but maybe his profile picture on Zoom looks exactly like how he was.
Yeah, no, I feel he hasn't moved in a while. Like so either he's frozen or that's his profile pic. Like he was just like, this is kind of interesting, but I got to get a snack, or you know, I want to vape. I don't want everyone to see me. I don't know what his situation is. No judgment here, but I'm pretty sure that's a still photo and not actually him. All right, so we'll go into this a little more. We're not going to watch the whole thing, but here we go.
I think Coastal Pedro would be very sufficient to do something like this because there's many different ways to build it. And I'm not a tech person, but you know, there's everything from mesh networks, which is basically just wireless stations on top of buildings and stuff like that, to laying actual fiber and cable. Beverly Hills.
Oh, he's back.
No, he's back.
Yeah, there he goes. He hit a thing. And so, all right. So I think that was a still photo, but he's in now.
Yeah.
All right.
Have the resources to really go the full Monty. They're doing fiber to the home, which is the highest quality way to go about it, also the most expensive. But so there's all kinds of different answers to that. And basically where it starts is you get professionals in to kind of do an assessment. We would clarify exactly what we're looking to do, and then they would start getting into the nitty-gritty details.
Who pays for that?
Usually the city pays for it, and eventually residents would pay for it, because again, instead of paying your bill to Cox or Spectrum or whoever else, you would pay it to the city or the collective.
Well, how much does it cost to build something like that, like the ranges?
It varies. I mean, if we were looking at, I asked a colleague of mine just for like a ballpark guesstimate, and we were factoring in all of San Pedro, and I just quoted 56,000 people because that's how big San Pedro is. Something like that could be in the range of 45 to 60 million when all is said and done. But if we broke it up, it would be less than that, obviously.
Wow, we can't. They want to build a bridge for 50 to 60 million over there on Paseo del Mar, and we can't get 3 to 5 million to open up Sunken City to lateral access as required in the Coastal Act. And it seems like the city is going to come up with that kind of money. It'd be an uphill battle.
So, and this is where it goes south. This is where it completely goes south. We start talking money. And I won't bore everyone with the details here, but it's like, I don't know. Again, it's like, and I should have had I should have been better prepared for that question to make it clear where it's like, this is just, I didn't want to have no answer. Like, I didn't want to be like, I have no idea how much this does or doesn't cost. I could be like, no, here's some like ballpark figures of what something like this could be. Again, if we're talking all of a certain area, this is an estimate of what it could potentially cost. But we could start with like one area of the city where it's like, okay, we're going to take, or the neighborhood, excuse me, where we're going to take this many residents and we're going to try to build this thing and it's going to cost this much. And here's how we're paying for it. Because there really has been all of the above as far as what you've seen throughout the country. You have seen towns in municipalities smaller than where I live. They've even done GoFundMes in the past to kind of like get the upfront costs, and then they would build it. And then what happens is all these residents would have this internet that was that was like better than what everyone else had. So then everyone else wanted it. I'm not suggesting going that route. I'd rather it not be reduced to a GoFundMe, but I'm just saying there's 1,000,005 ways. There is an upfront cost. Yes, there is, of course. And I would never pretend there isn't. But there's so many different ways to how it comes to fruition. We need to start at the beginning and just kind of join the organizations that specialize in making this happen for places. And instead, I kind of went deeper than I needed to. And that's where I really screwed up. So those were my two lethal mistakes. First lethal mistake, not really clarifying who I was and what they should and shouldn't expect from me. A lot of it was there throughout. I mean, I did say, I'm not a professional. I'm an enthusiast for this stuff, but I wasn't clear. I should have had an introductory moment when I was initially speaking. That would have allowed them to frame their questions accordingly. So I fucked up there. There's probably still people at that meeting that thought I was a developer, and they might be like, shittiest developer in the history of humanity. Because if I was a developer and that's all I had to offer them, I would have been. But I'm not a developer. I'm a citizen.
Right.
There's a big difference. And that's where I fucked up. My second lethal mistake was when we started talking costs. I had to straddle the line between concrete and abstract, and I fucked up that line. And I went too far into the concrete, and that ruined it. And that's not the council's fault. That's my fault. That's my fuck up. And, these are not unredeemable mistakes, but they're mistakes. And that's why I lost. And that's why I failed. And that's why this video is called Ron Fails Miserably at the Neighborhood Council. Because and that's the thing, I'm trying to make a national movement out of this thing. I really am. And, I don't have any formal announcements yet, but I have applied for a couple grants in this regard, fingers crossed. And I don't know what's going to happen, but something might. And just so you know, our big tagline is going to be a loss is a freaking loss and a win is a win. I'm not saying that you lost if you don't show up to a meeting and municipal broadband's not in your city within a week. That's impossible, first of all. But, this is a loss. This is in the L column for the Ron. When I showed up in Pasadena and I made the case for it and I got it on an agenda, well, that was a win because I got it on an agenda. And then I lost in the future because they said, hey, we can't afford this. I pointed out why their conclusion was, a little bit incomplete, and it still never went any further. So that was a loss. I lost to them in that case. So here in Pedro, I'm starting out with a loss through nobody's fault but mine. But I do think that there are some neighborhood council people open to this, and so that means that I can't redeem this loss.
Is there a way to show the cost over time though? Because I do feel like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, the cost of building the infrastructure is, XYZ $1 million, and that guy pointed out like, oh, we can't even get money to build this bridge or whatever. Which again is, I'm not saying that the bridge isn't important, but over time, wouldn't having municipal broadband eventually be beneficial even on an economic term?
Of course.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong to bring up startup cost concerns. That's a very real hurdle. It's not non-existent.
Right.
Where I also kind of, and I talk, we're not going to watch the whole thing, but I do talk about this. I do get into some of what you're saying. I bring up how, there is an upfront cost here, but it's also a huge community investment. It brings jobs to a community, first of all. It will bring, honestly, because I even brought up, I'm like, guys, we're Southern California. We're the Los Angeles area. Think about what goes on in Los Angeles. Think about show business and production and stuff like this and just all these other things that are so much a big part of the way of life in Southern California. The first neighborhood that really does it and does it right, they're going to see an influx of businesses, of production. So this is in so many ways a community investment, and you can ask Chattanooga how that goes because they're now able to brand themselves Gig City USA, and it's going really great for them to the point where everybody in Tennessee wants to get municipal broadband. And, you know, this big like, oh my God, if the city runs it, it's evil, blah, blah, blah. Well, why in Tennessee, a very red state, do they have more municipal broadband interest than anywhere else in the country? I'll tell you why. Because they see how it works. They see that it works.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So they get over their Ron Swanson moment. And I still don't know if that's what this guy was having or not. I don't know. Someday maybe I'll find out.
Maybe he'll befriend you.
I'll have him on the show and I'll be like, so are you like the real life Ron Swanson? Which if you are, that's fine. You know, we can, you know, I disagree with you, but you know, that's your choice. But why would you get involved with maybe like, why would you like, there's a reason Ron Swanson's a fictional TV character. And part of that reason is because the idea of someone like him ever having a job like that is so absurd that it's very funny.
Right.
But here you are actually kind of, maybe you are that guy.
You think, yeah.
And it'd be one thing if I lived in like a very, very conservative place, but I don't actually. So I don't know. Anyway, so that's where I fucked up, folks. And, you know, learn from my mistakes. You know, wear a suit next time. No, I'm just kidding.
Wear a tie. Get that tie on. Doesn't matter. Wear a t-shirt, but put a tie on top of the t-shirt. And if you can, learn from 16-year-old Krish and wear a top hat. That'll really show you're really down for business.
I think a top hat would have been, or you know what? Maybe I should have looked more of like a man of the people. Like maybe I should have been more like I should have worn like a new to San Pedro shirt, and I should like concerned citizen. But no, where I fucked up again, to just sum it up and move on to something else. I should have introduced myself more thoroughly. I should have just taken the extra 10 seconds to do that. And I should have straddled the line between abstract and concrete a little bit better. And, you know, and I think had I done that first part better, it would have informed that second part too. And it would have informed their questions better. And, you know, I fucked that up. Now, a couple things I did right. After it happened, I was very sad and very depressed. And I felt like texting the person and saying, I'm really sorry I wasted everyone's time. And I won't do that again. I didn't do that, and I'm glad I didn't, because that would have been kind of fucking weird. That would have just been a weird, and she would have been like, wow, this guy's kind of a psycho. And so I'm glad I didn't do that. I didn't do that. And that so that's so if you feel like it didn't go as good as you wanted it to, don't do something brash, knee-jerk, and send a text or email. Promise yourself you're going to sleep on it for a few days before you do any kind of follow-up.
Yeah.
And I did. And I did ask. I was like, you know, how do you think, like did the council seem pretty receptive? And the person said, well, you were at the same meeting I was, which I think was a nice way of saying, you're kind of a piece of shit, but maybe you're onto something.
I always feel like the well, you were at the same meeting I was is a very polite way of saying, you know, you fucked up.
That's the comedic equivalent of well, I thought it was funny. That was like oh, how'd my set go? I thought it was great. That was sort of the way of like well, you know. Or in that case, it could have been the way of just being like, well, you know, I was, you know, it could have just been sort of a little bit of I don't want to say deflection, but sort of just a little bit of like, well, you know, I mean, I was there.
Yeah.
You know, like you were there. Like what, how do you think it went?
Yeah, exactly. It's like
what matters is, you know, what matters is that you love you.
Yeah. What matters is that you went up there, Ron, and you talked about it. That's the important thing.
But no, I mean, this was a lot, you know, Ron fails miserably, and I own that miserable failure. But I don't think the game's completely over. I don't think that I'm not going to get a shot at redemption. And hopefully when I get that shot at redemption, I don't just, completely fuck it up. Like
Yeah,
I'm not like, listen, Ron Swanson, this is a good thing. Why don't you understand how good this is? I'm trying to make the community a better place. You're not letting me.
You not want to be like Chattanooga? Be like Chattanooga. I brought my friend from Chattanooga here to talk about how life is great.
Comcast, be a Chattanooga. Why don't you understand this?
Which
I won't do that.
Yeah.
I won't do that. All right. So I want to talk about this since we're in a municipal broadband theme today. Here's what I was referring to here in California. So there was a bill called SB4, and we'll take a quick look at what it is. Communications California Advanced Services Fund. The bill would require the office to coordinate with other relevant state and local agencies and national organizations to explore ways to facilitate streamlining of local and land use approvals, blah, 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 blah. And they're going to do a, here we go. So infrastructure projects up to $300,000 and for broadband infrastructure. And it's going to specialize in places where there's very poor internet service available to begin with. Broadband adoption account, and this is all with the CASF. So basically, they're putting money into broadband. They're going to start with very underserved areas and expand from there. That's basically what they're saying. There was a letter of over a dozen digital rights organizations in support of this bill. So, sounds like a good bill. Sounds like it's essential, especially in a pandemic. Well, how did it get stopped? Here's how it got stopped. This is an article by a guy named Steve Blum, who's a friend of the show, who's been on the show before. The fight over California's broadband future resumed in Sacramento on Monday with the battle line unchanged from August's stalemate. As expected, Lena Gonzalez introduced Senate Bill 4. Now, here we go. It takes 3 to tango in Sacramento. The Assembly's leadership speaker, Anthony Rendon, and Democratic floor leader Ann Calhoun bowed to the hundreds of thousands of dollars that they've been paid by AT&T, Comcast, Charter Communications, and other incumbents, and killed the deal. Now, if you follow this show and you live in California, or you just kind of follow the single-payer movement in the country, why does the name Anthony Rendon sound familiar to you? Because he's the same person who stabbed our single-payer bill in the back. So the same guy his nickname is the single-payer slayer here in California. And he got that nickname when Game of Thrones was really in full swing, obviously. But he's the single-payer slayer. Now he's the broadband slayer, too. Now he's the broadband slayer, too. He did it both. He did it both. How do you sleep at night? I'm the guy that stabbed single-payer and broadband in the back. Do you want to go to the doctor? Do you want decent internet, which is a utility in our lives at this point? Well, I'm going to do my part to make sure neither of those two things happen. How do you look in the mirror? Like how do you look at your neighbor? How do you walk down the street and be like, "Oh, I'm the guy. Your life could be so much better in so many ways, and I'm the guy who's making sure that doesn't happen."
Yeah, it's the power hungry. They know they have the power, and their big question is, well, what can you do for me? And it's like, well, you haven't done anything for us for you to be asking the question like that. Like you've essentially taken away is like basic rights from human beings, and you're like, what can you do for me for you to breathe this air? Like, no, we're breathing the air already. Like, just let us continue to breathe it. Like, people like him I never understand people like him and what their end goal is, other than profit, which is basically what he's doing. He's just making a shit ton of money over the rights of people, right? Over giving basic utility to people when we have kids sitting outside Taco Bell trying to do their homework. Like,
yes, well, that's the thing. And it's like, that's the other thing I keep coming back to. I'm like, we are in a place right now, especially during a pandemic, where people rely on the internet for everything, even more so than before, even more so. So you're literally saying it is up to companies like AT&T and Comcast. These are some of the most despicable companies in the world. And it's up to them whether your children learn or not. From a moral standpoint, this is a no-brainer a million times over. And it is the future. And so we're either gonna try to strike ahead of the curve, or we're gonna wait until it's too late. And that's why I'm acting on municipal broadband now. Because it's not like I live in an underserved area. I don't. There is cable infrastructure here, but this is the future. The future is the internet needs to be a utility in all of our lives. And we can't wait for the federal government to step in. We just can't, because they're not going to. Because if you think people at the state level are lobbied by big cable, which they are, how bad do you think it is federally?
Yeah.
It's a million times worse. And guess what? President-elect Joe Biden started his campaign in a dinner with Comcast.
Yeah, I was just about to mention that.
We're up against Goliath, folks, but you got to start in your community, and you got to start now, because this is the future. And if we wait until it's inevitable, if we wait until the internet gets gutted in a post-net neutrality world, if we wait until then, it will be too late. Mm-hmm. And once they take a medium from you, you don't get it back. Ask anybody who worked in fucking radio in the 90s. They'll tell you. Once you lose a medium, you don't get it back. And if you think it's unrealistic that we could live in a world where we're telling our children and our grandchildren what the internet used to be like, it's not unrealistic. And this is how you prevent it. So maybe that's what I should have opened with in the meeting. Do you want our kids and grandchildren to know what the internet's like? Huh? Ron Swanson?
By the way, I don't know if you caught Joe Biden's speech last night on NBC.
No, but, I missed it.
Yeah, it's probably for the best. But I missed most of it. But I did catch where in the middle of it, about 2 minutes in, they essentially cut the speech for a Verizon commercial, which was hilarious to me.
What was the speech about?
I don't know, just the fact that he won and America's democracy is back, or, and how he's not racist, and how he thinks black people are less diverse than Latinos, but he's not racist because he has a black friend who's now in charge of the DOD. Corn Pop.
President My Boss, and Corn Pop. Those were his friends.
something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, of course. And then he said not to believe Tara Reid, and that was the end of it. And everybody applauded.
No shit.
No,
he mentioned.
I'm kidding.
Oh,
I'm kidding. He did.
Fake news. Fake news.
I'm just following the pastor's advice.
That'd be so funny if you tweeted that out. You were just like, "Oh my God, breaking! Joe Biden says don't believe Tara Reid," and they're like, "Really?" And then you're like, "Oh, that last tweet was faulty information. My bad."
Yeah.
And then you know what else that pastor did after he tweeted that, and a bunch of people were like, "What the fuck, dude?" He tweeted again, and he's like, "Heavenly Father, please pray for let us have love and acceptance instead of." And then I retweeted that, and I actually retweeted that, and I was just like, what you did with Julian Assange was actually, let me read it verbatim, because I actually thought it was kind of a funny tweet. I retweeted him, I retweeted that his whole like little prayer or whatever. And here's what I said. I said, here, hold on, let me find it. I'm about to find it. That was a dick thing to do regarding Assange. Seriously, WTF is wrong with you? Also, I don't have a gender. Please just refer to me as Lit MF. God. That was God's message to him.
Yeah. Which
Krish,
is appropriate.
Where can people learn more about you, Krish Mohan?
I put up videos almost every single day on my YouTube channel and on my website, which is krishmohanhaha.com. It's KRISHMOHANHAHA.com. And you can subscribe to my email list and make a donation and all that good stuff. So, yeah.
Dude, thanks for breaking this down with me, man. I appreciate it. Next time I have you on the show, there will not be a scenario where you're going to talk to me and watch a video of me talking. Honestly, you're the first person who's ever done. Well, no, actually, no, you are. You're the first person because, well, when we covered the town halls, I was just by myself. Like I was like, this is what happened at my town hall, but I didn't have someone else where I was just like, that was me. Did you see that? That was me. Here's where I think it really went wrong. Like that, so thank you for being a good sport. And next time you're on the show, That will not be the scenario of the show. What
Unless
is
it's your first
weird?
stand-up set.
Well, what if I did do a show like that where I was just like, yeah, you want to do Get Your News On with Ron? You were like, yeah, and then like the whole time we just watched me do stand up. And you're like, what the fuck? What is this? Like, why are we watching? What do you think of that punchline, Krish? This is the stuff I'm workshopping. The news headline is Ron's gonna do a new special eventually when the world opens back up.
Yeah,
And here's the stuff he's workshopping.
It would be pretty much. I would understand why almost every girlfriend I've had never wants to watch stand up with me, because I do that with.
Do you make them? Do you make them watch
they
your
get excited? No. Other people
Oh,
stand up, and I'm like, you see what he did there? That was a good callback to 7. And they're like,
Oh.
yeah, idiot, we fucking know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
And like, I'm just pointing it out because that's one of the good callbacks.
that is pretty bad. But it'd be worse if it was like your own shit. That'd be like way worse.
Oh,
You
man,
know,
yeah.
When I first started dating my now wife, she was like really intrigued by the whole like, oh, you do comedy.
Yeah.
And she would be like, send me your set. She wanted me to like record every set. And I guess it was kind of like cute in a way, because like I'd go to an open mic and try out some new material. And if it went well, I'd be like, oh, I'm really glad you guys are on board with this because I'm recording this and I'm just really trying to impress a girl. It's forcing me to try to be better at this because I really don't want to like there's this bit I'm not sure of. I'm not going to try it because I want her to be impressed by me. But you know, eventually I kind of told her, she'd be like, set. And I was like, this is going to get old pretty quick. And she's like, no, I don't think so. And sure, she has not asked me for a set years. And I'm happy with that. Like, I like that. That's the way it should be. It'd be weird if she still did. If she was like, send me your set, I'd be like, what? Why?
Yeah.
There's more important uses for storage, really. I mean, but all right, everyone, check out Krish, KrishMohanHaha.com. And of course, follow him on Twitter at KrishMohanHaha, where you can find his YouTube channel and everything else, Krish Mohan Cetric. One chat, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. You help keep this show on the air. And thank you very much for that lovely drawing. I appreciate it very much. And folks, patreon.com/Ron Placone. If you are so able, I know it's a rough time, but if you're on stable ground financially, for a Give What You Can level, you get all kinds of exclusive content. You can download my album. You get a Zoom show once a week. You get the patron stream once a week where I respond directly to the patrons. And here's the kick, especially for the holiday seasons. You can get your own theme song. I'm making theme songs for people. It's been a blast. That's for a Give What You Can level. I don't have tiers on my Patreon. It's whatever you're comfortable giving, no matter how big or small it is. Whatever you're comfortable giving, you get all the same perks. And I'll make you a theme song. Makes an amazing holiday gift. So I'm just saying, if you are on stable ground, if you're not, don't worry about it. There's all kinds of things you can do to support this show that don't cost a dime. Make sure that when it is monetized, you watch the ads all the way through on a different browser. And don't just do that for me. Do that for Krish. Do that for all the content creators you know and love. That helps us. Like our videos. Share our videos. Make sure you're subscribed. They unsubscribe people every day. Make sure you're subscribed. Tell your friends. Share it on your Facebook. Share it on your Twitter. That goes a long, long way. And that's a way to support all the creators you know and love. And that doesn't cost a dime. And if you are on stable ground, patreon.com/Ron Placone if you are so interested. Check out Krish Mohan Haha on Twitter, on the internets, and subscribe to his YouTube channel that way. We'll be back tomorrow. Graham Elwood's going to join the show tomorrow. And in the meantime, you know the drill. Lucy, she's asleep on her cat tree. It's adorable. Where's your cat at?
I think he is floating around. Oh, he's back on the bed. He's mad at me right now because the door is closed.
Oh, yeah, he doesn't like that. What's his name?
Yeah, he wants Milo.
Milo, yes.
Yeah.
Milo says meow. Lucy says meow. I say peace. Krish says peace. And we both say free Assange. See you tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.